Hello, I'm going to talk about the adulterous woman that was brought before Jesus. What this story is really telling us. Um, you have to kind of read between the lines to see what's really going on there. I always use the question, why did Jesus not stone her? Isn't his responsibility to make sure the law was upheld? Which common sense is reason probably why the Pharisees brought her up to in the first place to test if what he would do. If he's a true king, he will stone this woman. He knows that she's guilty. But Jesus is a lot smarter than they took him for. He's smarter than Solomon. Solomon solved the mystery of the child, which child that belonged to two women. Well, Jesus was pretty much doing the same thing. He was seeing right through their sins and exposing them for who they are. And you have to take the story in the content of who, what, when, where, and how, and what is really going on in the story. Who are these people Jesus is talking to? Who is this woman that is really being brought to Jesus? And so when you look at the story a little bit closer, you'll see that when they brought um, this woman and threw it down at Jesus' feet, um, supposedly for committing adultery, um, what is really going on here? I mean, why did they do that when the law stated that if a man and a woman are caught in adultery, you got to bring both of them? So you have to have two witnesses to ever commit somebody for a crime in the first place. You only have one witness. That's the person's let go. That's why Jesus always sends two prophets, not one. You'll read in Revelation, there's two prophets, the two olive trees that are coming to preach against it, because the law states it must be set up by two witnesses. And so, therefore, you go and um, see that they have plenty of witnesses, right? But the other law states that the man and the woman are supposed to come before, and they will be tried and then stoned to death. So where is the man? They didn't bring the man, so they automatically broke a law. It is forbidden to bring a woman caught in adultery if you didn't have the woman, also, I mean the man also. So the mere fact that they brought this woman without the man, they automatically broke the law. And so their hypocrisy right there is being thrown in Jesus' face. He's like, why are you bringing this woman to me? Where's the man? No man, no crime. And so look a little bit deeper. You say, okay, well, where was the man? How did they know? Well, Jesus is obviously writing in the sand something, and you have to ask yourself, what is he writing? Well, he's probably writing where the law that states where's the man at. He needs to be stoned as well. And so he starts writing more stuff, and then you hear the story about the oldest man drops the stone, and he leaves, and then the young is after that, and the young is all the way down to the youngest zealous child that wants to stone this woman. And you have to ask yourself, why did they put their stone down and leave? Well, the mere fact that Jesus is most likely writing their names in and exposing who needs to be stoned. The man is standing right in front of us, but nobody seems to know that because nobody's bringing the man in front. So Jesus is exposing each and one of those men that they're the ones that are actually sleeping with this woman. That's the reason why they know that she's been sleeping around. And so there's another sin. They're the ones who are actually committing adultery with this woman. And so they don't want to be stoned, so they get the heck out of there as soon as possible when their names are being written, you know. And Jesus didn't miss one of them, so they all got out of there. Jesus didn't sleep with her, so he wasn't going to stone her. There was no crime in a sense. And even though that Jesus knew that she had been committing adultery, why did he not stone her himself? Well, when Moses was given the law by God, there was also a law that stated that do not give your children over to prostitution and to the worship of false gods, fertility worship. We think of prostitution today as a woman going down the street picking up somebody, a call girl, an escort. That's not what was going on back then. A prostitute was somebody who went to a temple, mostly Baal or Israel, and there would be men and girls standing out, or boys and girls standing outside the temple, and people would pay homage to the gods by sleeping with the person, and that's fertility. So if they wanted money, they would pay the prostitute and sleep with the woman, hoping to get more money. If they wanted better crops, they would go and sleep with the woman or the man, and they would have better crops, supposedly. They're giving into fertility worship. And so the mere fact that the people had allowed these people that brought this woman to the Jesus' feet, they're the ones that are supposed to stamp this out. This worship had plagued the Israelites all the way through the Old Testament history, all the way up until this point. And so Jesus is exposing the mere people that were supposed to stop this is allowing this to happen. Why are you allowing Baal worship to happen in the first place? If you knew she's a prostitute and you knew where she was standing, why didn't you tear down the temple as well? Now, a lot of Greeks were still in that area, and so they had Greek temples everywhere, especially around the southern part of Lake Galilee. Um, and so we're supposed to treat foreigners with respect when they come in our country. We're not supposed to allow them to worship their gods in our country. We were supposed to allow only God worship and God worship alone. If they break the laws, then they're subject to the laws of the land as well. And so these people were not doing this. They were doing it. And the parents had actually given up their child into prostitution. That is forbidden in those days. They were probably giving their child into prostitution because times were rough, times were hard, they needed extra money. It's no different than what you see in Thailand today, where the parents are giving their girls and boys over to sexual immorality because they're hurting. They need the money, and so that's probably what happened. And so really the sin is the parents allowing this child to be taken up into Baal or Asherah worship. That's the real sin right there. And then the country leaders are allowing it to exist, which is even a greater sin. So in reality, who is committing adultery but the leaders of that day? They were committing spiritual adultery against God. They are the leaders of the flock. They're supposed to be leading the flock to worship God, and secretly at night they're worshiping Satan. And Jesus is exposing that they are the ones committing adultery, not this woman. Even though that she did commit some kind of adultery act, she was forced to. Um, she really didn't have a right to do anything. If she would have not have been sold into Baal worship, they probably would have killed her anyways. So this woman was being forced to do something that she probably didn't want to do. She was probably given into prostitution as a child, so her mind was deceived since she was a little infant, basically. And so she didn't know what she was doing, innocent. And that's why God forgave her. God had mercy on her and told her what the right way was to stop sinning. And she initially followed Jesus. And because she was rescued away from the Baal worship. She didn't want to worship Baal. She didn't want to sleep with these men. She was forced to do it. And these men were committing more of an atrocity than this woman. They were the leaders of the flock, supposed to be teaching the children of God about God, God only, and they were allowing this spiritual adultery to exist in the country. So the ones who really should be stoned to death are the preachers. Now you say, what does that have to do with today? Well, look at the preachers today in the church. They're allowing Baal worship and Ashtaroth worship to exist even today. And what do you mean by that? Christian holidays are merely sun worship holidays. They're denoted to the sun, they're denoted to the moon, and they're denoted to the Venus and Jupiter and Saturn. And so they're masked as Christian holidays. In reality, that's what the mystery religion is. It's a worship of the sun and the planetary solar system. And the church is still doing it, and they're calling it Christian holidays. And God said, when you enter the country, do not take up the pagan holidays and call it God worship. Well, that's what the Christian church is doing. The preachers know it's wrong, but they don't care. There's money to be made. There's profit to be made. Um, it's too confusing. Trying to tell people that we're not going to do this anymore. People aren't going to listen to it because they enjoy these fun-filled holidays. They're not going to give them up. They love their sin more than they love God. They love their lover more than they love God. They're committing adultery against God. And people need to wake up. The real adultery here is not this woman committing some weird crime. It is the church committing a crime against God. The bride is going out sleeping with the church with falsehood. And that's why it's called the great whore. She's not giving what is right to God. She's not being loyal to God. She's not being faithful to God. She's going out there sleeping around with Jezebel. And that's what you see in Revelations. And Jesus talks about he lays Jezebel on the bed to see who will sleep with her. Well, Jezebel led people, the Israelites, into idolatry worship of Baal, and this is exactly what's going on with this adulterous woman. That's why Jesus forgave her. No two parties, no crime, point blank. And the real crime was spiritual adultery that was existing in the country. That's why they got out. Jesus shamed them more than they were ever expecting to be shamed. The mere fact they brought her to his feet was a sin in the first place. And they claimed to be self-righteous and holy. They're the leaders of the law. The Sanhedrin were the court of God's law. They knew it was a sin to bring that woman up before without bringing a man. But they did it anyway. They knew what they were up to. That's hypocrisy at its best. Thank you very much. And I hope this video goes through. I've been having a lot of trouble with these videos. But talk to y'all later. Bye.